Welcome to the Will and Dave Show, where we talk about hard things, whether it's comfortable or not. We think those conversations are necessary and important. We think that having different opinions is crucial to a healthy discourse. So saddle up, enjoy the fireside chat.
Hey, William.
Hey, Dave. Welcome to the Will and Dave Show, everybody.
I even got the right lower third on this.
You did. You got our little third. We look like a proper show now.
Even have our logo in the corner. What do you know?
Mint.
Mint.
It's pretty heavy, Doc.
You would bring back some history there, wouldn't you?
I'm waiting till the chance I can listen, like I can watch that with like nieces and nephews. I want to watch those movies with them really badly. I want to be there for that.
In those days, is it going to be like VR headsets?
It's going to be ancient history to them. But
when we watched them, it was on VHS. And then they were DVDs.
Okay.
Now we're streaming them. So what's going to be the next iteration of Back to the Future movies?
But before you get it, I just want to throw a quick call back. Nobody that's watching this is going to get it, but I know it existed. Do you remember up at Hilltop Ranch? You showed me the VHSs that they had of Back to the Future where they had dubbed out all the swear words.
That was not Hilltop Ranch.
I'm pretty sure I saw them at Hilltop.
No.
Because I watched them with Luke and...
No. Well, that might have been another one. The one I told you about was when I was in YWAM.
Oh,
and we had a video editor.
Yeah,
in the group.
It all.
And he overdubbed, and the one that I always remember was the scene when he's in the radiation suit and he's standing over his future father, and he's telling his no, it's not that scene. It's later on when he tells his dad, "Get your damn hands off her," and his dad says, "Do you really think I should swear?" And in the movie, he says, "Yes, God damn it, swear." But he overdubs, says, "No, Dad, of course you shouldn't swear. Everybody knows swearing is bad." And that's what the guy had dubbed over it. And we're watching this, a bunch of teenagers in a mission group in Lakeside, Montana, at the YWAM base there. And it was...
I've seen a copy of it. It may not have been the exact copy, but one similar than that. And I'm pretty sure I watched it at Hilltop with those boys. Yeah. And good times. Anywho, yes, it probably will be on VO.
Swear. Everybody knows swearing is bad.
Not even going to get to that. Just ruins the continuity of the story, but that's just...
Yeah. It's one of those things.
Sick and tired of these monkey fighting plates on this Monday to Friday plane. Anywho.
I always am wondering what happens for family editing movies when they run into a Samuel L. Jackson movie. Is it just a beep from one end until the credits?
Well, if I remember correctly, I seem to recall in an interview Samuel L. Jackson being very open to actually he will do the dubs for his own videos.
Right.
Because he thinks it's hilarious. Like he just gets a kick out of it.
Could be.
And so I'm pretty sure he did them for Snakes on a Plane for the edited version of that. And I think he's offered to do other ones because he's the kind of actor that is so much of a character and he leans into it. Like he narrated, I'm going to use my one swear word here for this stupid little bit. He narrated the audiobook of Go the Fuck to Sleep.
Yes.
Which is a wonderful children's book.
Yeah.
And he narrated that just because he loved it. And so he's like, yeah, I'll do it.
Because he thought it was funny.
Probably did it for dirt cheap.
Yep. So we do not have our sponsor this, as the shows, I haven't made them yet.
Well, and it's a hairier topic. We're kind of taking a break off from our series to talk about what we're going to talk about today.
We kind of need to do our sponsors, though.
I mean, we can give them just a read.
So you do the one for Mallory, and I'll come back with the other one.
Okay. So this show is sponsored in part by Northern Trust of Fort St. John, British Columbia. Northern Truss is a maker of all things truss related, as well as supplier of flooring support products and other accoutrements. Their motto is building our community, and that's really a big part of it. And we're going to talk about that tonight. How the owner there takes pride in helping members of his community get the job done and get it right. For example, this previous summer there was a windstorm that swept through the area, and we made it a priority to make sure that those homes and businesses got repairs fast.
You are going to pay for the accoutrement again.
I'm doing it specifically just to poke fun at him.
And for
That's what he
those of
gets.
you who know our regular sponsor, I'm going to play the intro for her show because it features the voice of my co-host. So I'm just going to throw that in right here. Oh, I thought I was.
That's the visual. Good thing this isn't live.
Really? Stitched by Susan without the audio. I don't know what happened to the audio. Just
If
a
you
moment.
play it again, I can do audio.
Just a moment. I want to know where it is, darn it. Where?
Welcome to Quilting's first reality show, live and unscripted.
Oh God,
with
not this
Susan
one.
Smith.
No, God. Blech. Blech.
So we played the intro for her show. We played it here the other day, and it was actually yesterday morning for her live show. And we were asking the audience, so what do you think? Are they goofy? Do you think we should do them? No. Overwhelmingly positive. Overwhelmingly positive.
I'm happy to hear it.
And this is the one that we did.
Welcome to Quilting's first reality show, live and unscripted with Susan Smith. And when you say orphan, do you mean orphan, a child who has lost his parents, or orphan frequently?
Frequently.
I left off that ending, but
Okay, yeah.
So yes,
I'm
our
happy with
other
that one.
show sponsor is Stitched by Susan with her podcast, which is slaughtering ours.
Measure twice, cut once.
You got her. And if you want to support this show, because we're just a couple of crazy guys who like to talk to each other and argue, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Will and Dave show, as we couldn't afford the in front of Will and Dave show because we're on a budget. So we thank you for your support. Whoa, no, go away. There.
Still working out the kinks. That's okay. So what are we talking about tonight, Dave?
Oh, do we really have to?
Yeah, yes we do.
You Canadians have gone crazy.
Yeah.
What does it take to rile up a Canadian? You know how many engineers does it take to screw in a light bulb? All the dumb jokes. What does it take to rile up a Canadian or a whole bunch of Canadians?
I mean, apparently a vaccination mandate in the trucking industry, of all things.
Yes.
Medical industry, we can live with that. Other industries, sure thing. Truckers, don't you dare. Don't you dare. Don't you dare mess with our boys on the road.
It's interesting. I'm going to go for the obvious first. Your prime minister.
Mm-hmm.
I hope everybody who voted for him is proud.
I doubt it.
Because his comments about the fringe, who have unacceptable beliefs, whoever wrote his script, I hope he fires him, because it was just so poorly taken and so poorly delivered. I mean, this is a guy who should have been smarter than that, in my humble opinion.
Well, I was talking to you right before the show started, and I'm
Yes.
sure we'll get into it again as this episode continues, how there's a lot of points in this whole current ongoing situation that I feel a lot of conflict about, because I don't sit neatly into either one camp or the other in terms of how I feel about it. But I can unequivocally say that our prime minister throughout this last week or so has been just an absolute embarrassment for the reasons you mentioned. Like his ability to maintain any kind of diplomatic stance or openness or understanding as to why this convoy is happening is non-existent. For those of you who haven't been following last episode and maybe tuning in and don't know what we're talking about the Freedom Convoy 2022. You can find various articles up on it across all manner of news sites, including Fox News and other American news organizations.
No, you mean a conservative right-wing protest in Canada is on Fox News?
Really? Who knew?
Oh my! Go figure.
Yeah. So this is
for all my conservative
convoy.
friends who thinks that Fox News is too liberal.
Yeah. So to give a very brief, very cliff notes of the Cliff Notes version of what this is, it is a convoy that traveled across Canada with trucks, both civilian and industrial, making the trip to Ottawa to protest the newest round of vaccination mandates that are being laid out by both provinces and federal government. Initially, the convoy went over generally well, but now that it's reached Ottawa and has been stationed in Ottawa, both the vehicles and the people that are in support and opposition to it, now that they've sat in Ottawa for a couple of days, there's been multiple incidents, and public opinion is growing much more. Yeah.
It's a whole week now.
Public opinion is getting much more divisive and much more polarized the longer that it goes on.
You think?
Who knew?
You throw 100,000 extra people in a city, and you think there's not going to be a few bad apples, a few altercations?
And at the lowest estimate, an extra 500 to 1,000 trucks on top of that.
Yes.
At the lowest estimates. Yes. And now, not all of those are necessarily 18-wheelers with trailers. Only some of them have trailers. But still, you're talking a massive influx of vehicles and a massive influx of people that are all crowding around Parliament and taking up space in the city.
So here's my question for you. Because you have in your words, you are torn on how to respond or what to think.
Sort of.
Is that a fair...
So much torn on... It's not so much that I'm torn on how to think. I am torn on how to respond, because I like and dislike both sides of this sort of... People seem to be taking one of two camps, either for or against the convoy, and there seems to be very little middle ground. And I sit in the middle ground. I both support things about it and don't like other things. But whenever I talk to friends who are in support one way or the other, there doesn't seem to be a lot of understanding. If I say, I question this thing about it, one side's going to be here, and one side's going to be, why would you do that? I can't believe you would possibly support them. I don't support them, but I also don't diametrically oppose them at the same time. I'm somewhere in the middle. And I mean, on one hand, lots of people will probably give me flack for being centrist or too moderate. Can't stand for something, you'll fall for anything type thing. So yeah, there's a lot of conflict on, should I pick a side? Should I not pick a side? How do I talk about my lack of picking a side?
So let me ask you, because obviously I have picked a side. I don't think that's a secret that I'm going to. When you look at the reaction from those on the ground, from Hutterites, Mennonites, hockey teams.
So for the people who are generally in support of the protest.
Yes. It's the everyday American. It's not...
Canadian.
I'm sorry, the everyday Canadian. It is not the fringe.
Apologize.
I'm sorry, Canadians, that I called you American.
I'll forgive you.
That probably is one of the worst things you could call a Canadian right now. It's the everyday Canadian. It's not the fringe, as your prime minister called them. It's not misguided beliefs. It's everyday people who are saying it's wrong. Not the vaccine is wrong. It's not the vaccine. And there are some in that group who believe that, although it's not what it's about. It is about the mandates. It takes a lot to rile up a Canadian. It takes an awful lot.
It takes a lot to mobilize a Canadian. We get
Well,
riled up over our Tims on a regular basis. We don't do anything about it. We just whinge about it
only
in our
when the
trucks on the way
drive-through
to
is
work.
too long, and then you still wait in line for 40 minutes. And I thought that Chick-fil-A was bad, except
Speak for yourself. I haven't been to Timmy's in a long time, except for picking up donuts for the boys. That's
there
about the
you
only
go.
time I go to Timmy's.
So what is there that when you look at okay, what has sort of inspired this in everyday Canadians who's saying, hey, you need to ease off the mandates? What in your head looks at that and says, ooh, that's not right? I don't know. I don't think I can support that.
I
As
don't
you have said
necessarily
on this
feel that
show,
way.
is you're not in support of the mandates.
I
You
don't
have said
like
that.
the mandates.
Yes.
I don't like
Well,
the mandates. And
well, if you don't like them, how can you support them if you don't like them? I mean, just
there's lots of things that I don't like that I still do. I mean, I don't like washing dishes, but I still do it because it needs to be done. And that's a harsh metaphor. I don't want that
yes.
to apply directly to how I feel about the
I know
mandates.
what you mean, though.
I think we've talked about it before on the show, how I don't like the mandates. I don't like telling people what they should be doing with their bodies. But at a certain point, when I try to weigh how I view the risk of loss of life relative to people's personal freedoms, at a certain point, the loss of life outweighs the personal freedoms, and I stop caring about the personal freedoms quite as much. Which isn't to say I don't think they have value. It's not like I'm saying personal freedoms have no value. It's just when weighed against what I view as the cost, I view the cost as too high. And so while I don't support the mandates, I worry that the mandates might be necessary because people aren't doing what I perceive to be the right choice. And that's a big part of it, is that it's what I perceive and what people who are in the same political spectrum as me seem to perceive, which is a rabbit hole in and of itself. I want to throw that comment up.
I'm doing it.
I'd love to throw that comment on the screen. Hey, thank you for watching. I know who you are, and I appreciate it. Secondly, I agree. That is a very dangerous precedent, and it is one that is, again, that is tied with how much I don't like mandates. Is the Canadian government, as you've pointed out, and many others have, the Canadian government is really good at taking incremental steps to increase its ability to do things in an emergency, and then just never bothering to rescind it. And while
is it a
so
bothering?
far nothing,
I want to poke at that a little bit. It isn't.
well, yeah,
It's the fact that they have the power and they're going to keep it.
Mhm.
It's not a
Yeah,
oh, we're just not
and that's
going
worrisome.
to anymore.
Like,
It's on
Canada,
purpose.
yeah, and our government hasn't at least blatantly abused any of those powers yet. But the fact that they're just kind of accumulating them is worth being concerned about.
I would beg to differ
I don't
with
want
you.
to.
Look at the GST.
What about it?
It was instituted 1985, 88, around there, in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
It was only around for 5 years.
Then we got the HST.
That's all we need it for. No. It was only going to be around for 5 years, and it was done. And then it never went away.
Mm.
They're really good at saying one thing and doing the exact opposite.
And
this is your government, and it's every government. It's our government. It's any government.
I was going to say, not to downplay the fact they're doing
Yes.
it. This isn't me sloughing that question away, but
Yeah.
it's government.
Yes.
Governments do that universally. Western/first world countries almost unilaterally consolidate power wherever humanly possible.
And it isn't on accident. And that is really my pushback, is that it's not like, oh, they're going to take it and they won't be bothering to give it back. No, they're going to take it and they're going to keep it. It's not a not bothering.
Yeah.
It's on purpose.
Yeah. I mean,
so this is one of the arguments, and I've talked to some of the people in the convoy. This is their argument.
Yeah.
This is not
I think one of the differences right now is that Canada isn't seizing extra power to do it. It already had the power to do it. It's just exercising it. It's still a dangerous precedent, but they're not changing any laws or adjusting what they're allowed to do. They're functioning within the ability that they have.
There's an old saying in churches, it goes around a lot, Will, he won't make you go, he'll make you willing to go. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've heard it from the pulpit somewhere.
Well, yeah. Again, I'm not saying this to say the government's not to blame or that they're not doing anything wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's a precedent, but it's not necessarily an expansion of their power at this point, at least.
So the question that I would ask again is that for those of you who are in the liberal side of things, or
Yes. Because I speak
or
for all of them,
progressive,
obviously.
or progressive, or for those of you who are more progressive,
Yeah, I
when
speak
you-
for them all. Yep.
when you look at the mandates
Yes.
and you say, "Ooh, I don't really agree with them, except I think that for health reasons I need to." And then you look at
Something
this
like that.
swell of support for these guys in the common people in Canada, from vaccinated and unvaccinated,
Mhm.
from the right and the left. I mean, it's made my sister angry. My sister doesn't get involved in politics ever, and she's worked
Fun
up
fact.
about this.
Fun fact, I'm going there for breakfast tomorrow, and we got the PSA before going for breakfast that we're not allowed to talk about politics at breakfast in advance of going for breakfast. We've been told no politics at the table. I
This
want
is
to
the
touch both on this comment and the previous one
Yeah.
from True Swans. When they say it's not a minority, this is me being pedantic. I think that when we use the word minority, we insinuate that it is a very tiny percentage when we're talking a minority. And I don't think that this is a minority in that sense. I don't think that a minority of people in the sense that only like 1 to 10% are upset about the mandates. But I don't think it's half. I don't think that it is a majority at this point. So I'm like I say, I don't want to be pedantic by minimizing. Yeah, so I guess I'm going to see them there. I don't want to be pedantic by saying that a minority is that they are a small number, but I don't think that they are necessarily the majority either. It's not a small number of people. I don't want to give that impression that I think they're just some small group, some small fringe group of extremists.
Here's one of the things that I have seen. I have seen a number of people who are in favor of vaccination, who think that it's necessary, who rail at the attitude of those who say, "I don't want to get vaccinated." They say, "You need to get vaccinated." And there are nurses in that group, been doctors in that group, who firmly believe you need to get vaccinated, who support this whole convoy and the idea behind it.
Yes.
It's going to be interesting at the end of this.
Very.
I don't believe it's going to change anything. I hope to God it does, but I don't think that it will, because they don't really care.
And unfortunately, I'm inclined to agree with you. I share your same pessimistic view of how government's going to react to this. I want to go back to the fly fishing Bow River comment.
Right.
Of it's an overreach of their power versus an expansion. And I think that's actually a very good point. I'm intrigued to see what's going to happen over the next couple of years, because there are already lawsuits being leveled at the government based on these mandates that are going to call into question whether or not they had the power to do them. And I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if they have the power to or not, if it is an overreach or not. And I am very interested to see where our justice system lands on that.
This is an interesting. I'm not researching it as we speak, so I'm not going to critique it.
I do know that our electoral college system is janky at best.
You don't have an electoral college system.
Or no, sorry, that's the American system. What is ours called again? I can't remember what ours is called again, but our voting system is janky at best to begin with.
There are people on this side of the border who say that ours is janky, so I don't think
yours is heckin' janky. At least we don't have gerrymandering as harsh as you guys do, but
I don't
that's
think you
a
have
whole other ball of wax.
A monopoly on janky electric.
No, we do not.
Election.
It's all kind of broken right now.
Yeah.
Was it? There's something else I wanted to touch on. I just can't remember what it was. I'm sure I'll think of it later.
We had a picture last week on the show. I'm going to look it up if I can here in a second. It's a friend of mine who got a vehicle done up with a big sign and the mandates or something on the thing, and you made the trusses for on the truck to hold the sign. His name's Andy. He's a down to earth everyday Canadian. He is not. Mm-hmm. He's not a firebrand. He doesn't look for. He just is a quiet guy. I know him. I've worked with him. I've been in meetings with him. He's
apparently I've met him. I just don't remember him by name. I'd know his face if I saw it, probably. But
he's worked up.
Mm-hmm.
He's not the kind of guy who gets worked up over nothing. And when you look at the people in these convoys, it started a while ago when we interviewed the guy for the BC Facebook group on the mandates.
Mm-hmm.
It's everyday Canadians who have had enough.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at the groundswell of support, it should be frightening for those in power.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's going to be.
I mean, I think if any party can get its ducks in a row, the Liberal Party would need to be scared. I think their only reason that they have any kind of control over our current government is just due to a lack of cohesive opposition, not because they're particularly well liked by anyone. I don't know anyone progressive or he's been ousted. Out. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't been liked since about day 2 of his tenure.
I don't think he was liked before he was elected. I think he was he was sort of like the worst.
Like,
the best of the
there
turds.
Are 30 odd million people in our country. You think we could find a decent one to oppose Trudeau? So far, we haven't managed it. Someday, maybe. Who knows?
So what do you think of the new one?
I don't know who he is. I haven't looked, honestly.
It's
my newsfeed has been flooded
Bergen.
with. I know nothing about her, so I can't really comment at all.
You should look her up.
I will. I honestly, my newsfeed has been flooded mostly with this Freedom Convoy and Associated Press.
This is very interesting, as I do agree, is as a rule, all you Canadians up there are more liberal-minded, which is why you, in the elections, favors the liberal mindset.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you look at the withdrawal of personal freedoms, it rubs them raw, because they have historically leaned that direction.
Yeah, historically, we've leaned in a direction of you do you as long as it doesn't hurt anybody kind of mentality.
Right.
I mean, in terms of social progressivism, Canada is, I would like to say Canada is far and ahead of the United States as our North American neighbor.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's also to comment on the 30% of the vote chose Trudeau. That's also partially a product of a multi-party system,
right?
Like a non-two-party system, which there are good and bad reasons to have a more than two-party system, and that's kind of one of the downsides is that only 30% of the country voted for him, but that was more than the other guys.
Yeah,
it was enough. I'm not saying it's good. Just to clarify, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying that's the way the cookie crumbled in that regard.
So I will ask you this, William, because I am curious.
Mm-hmm.
You, as a progressive,
mm-hmm.
as a liberal,
That's
you're not a liberal. I don't want to put that tag on you.
I am the Lorax, and I speak for the trees.
As a progressive,
yes.
What would it take? How far does it need to go before you say enough is enough? I'm not going to support this. That's
a loaded question.
That's what the majority of the people who are in this convoy is saying. I've put up with enough, except I've had it.
Yeah.
What would it take for you? So how far would it have to go before you would say to them, no, I'm going to join this convoy?
I don't know exactly. I know what my end goal is in terms of this whole political movement. I know what I want to see happen before I can kind of stop how to word it. I know what my end goal is. I don't know how the best way is to reach it. And I don't know if the government's ever going to take the steps to do that or if people are going to do that. My goal is to see vaccination rates go up even further. My goal is to see less people dying of the flu. That's kind of it. And I don't know where between now and that happening depending on what steps the government take, am I going to stand up and be like, no, that's too much? Alternatively, something that I've been trying to work into the conversation, have on the right spot, so I might as well do it now. I would have loved to have seen my government. Like, I don't. If me, a dude at my computer, can take the things that I see on Joe Rogan or the things that I see shared on Facebook that are painting the vaccine in a very bad light, to put it lightly, like very, very generously. If I can fact check and debunk those as just a dude in my computer chair, I don't understand why government can't seek out individuals to form some kind of committee or consensus that can help to combat the misinformation that gets spread everywhere. Because I don't see governments making much of an effort to do it outside of saying, oh no, we're right, you're wrong. The doctor said, and that's it. I feel like so much more could have been done to combat the misinformation, because I at the root of it blame disinformation for this entire debacle. This wouldn't
Let me
exist.
turn this around a little bit, if you will, if you don't mind me interrupting you.
By all means.
Why, if you're the dude who's at your desk at your computer and you can research all this stuff and say, ooh, maybe they're not right, maybe it's not, why can't everybody do that?
I mean, everybody.
Why do we have to look at the disinformation and say, ooh, that's not healthy, we can't allow you to say that?
What do you mean?
As anybody can debunk this stuff. Anybody can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And for Rogan and some of these others who we look at and say that it is it's disinformation, and we have to have a committee who can go into it and squash it.
Not squash it, but...
Or Rogan should be censored in what he says.
I don't know how I feel about that one.
And you have said that. Is that he should be, he's in a position
he should be more conscious of what he's saying, because
I think
people believe what he says out of hand. And people shouldn't. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But in the words of Tommy Lee Jones in Men in Black, people are stupid.
Yeah.
A person is smart, but people are dumb, panicky creatures. And Rogan talks to people, not a person, on his show. He's too big to make statements like that without somebody wagging a finger at him and telling him that he's an asshole.
There's your second swear words.
I feel like that one's okay.
For the day. Apparently it doesn't matter anymore with YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Swear all you want, Will. Why do we have to go to the Joe Rogans of this world, or for that matter, the Fox News or the AON network or whatever the new one, and the one up there, Rebel News.
The OANN, One America News Network.
No, the one down
Rebel
here.
News in Canada. We have Rebel News.
There's a new one down here as well. I don't even care. Why do we need to rely on them for good information when all the information is available for you and for me? All we have to sit down and say, hey, Siri, our vaccine's good.
Or safe, even.
Or safe.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we're so all tied up on we have to end this disinformation, when the disinformation, if you want to look,
there's a video I've been watching on repeat recently. I might have sent it to you, I might have not. It's by a gentleman named Dan Olson. His YouTube channel called Folding Ideas. I highly recommend it.
Folding Ideas.
Yeah, he talks in this video. The video is called Building a Flat Earth, and initially the video is talking about flat earthers and whatnot, but it pivots into talking about QAnon, and in general it's a talk about conspiracy theories and whatnot. And I don't necessarily I don't want to insinuate that I think the people who don't trust vaccinations or don't fact check to what I would consider quality fact checking, I don't want to call them conspiracy theorists out of hand. That's not what I'm implying here.
Right.
But he makes a statement in that video, and I'm probably paraphrasing this a little bit, where he says that people, rather than looking for facts to form opinions,
Yes.
they look at facts as something that is subservient to a conclusion.
Oh, that happens
So
all
they're
the
not,
time.
yeah, it does. And it's a never ending problem. How do you fight that? I can talk about facts and fact checking and scientific papers until I'm blue in the face, but if somebody's already made up their mind to feel one way about something, it won't matter what I say. It won't matter what a committee says. It won't
Yes,
matter what anyone says,
that's
because
true.
they've found a conclusion that, for whatever reason, that's the conclusion that they like, whether it's simpler, whether it's safer, whether it's
It
easier to
agrees with their belief
digest.
system.
Yeah, it aligns
Yeah.
with what they want or what they think
Yes.
they want.
Yes.
And so the only facts that are relevant are the ones that support that. And I'm not saying that that as in like everyone else does that, but I see the truth. Bullshit. I also have things that I inevitably am somewhat blind to. I have biases.
I just had to put that up for you. I'm not,
How, you know, this also leads into a crux of running a show that we want to grow and we want to propagate more on the internet, is how much do I want to let that slide so that he'll hopefully tune in again, or they, maybe a she, who knows. How much do I
I,
want to let that slide, and how much do I want to just roast it
I
because
just
it
want.
makes me feel better?
It's the mental imagery for me of somebody trying to piss up a flagpole that has me laughing. Is it a guy or a gal for starters? And that
it,
would change
it,
that anatomic picture.
this is a reference that only you will get, and literally nobody else on the planet that I've ever talked to will get it. That sounds like a real Mackenzie Hawkins move right there, pissing up a flagpole.
There's a few people who read Robert Ludlum.
Few.
This is true, True Swans. I agree with this.
I agree.
We don't know
Yes.
how to debate and have a conversation, and at the end of it, say, okay, we don't agree. I mean, it's sort of.
It's almost like we need two white dudes to start a show and talk about that. Almost. Not quite. I don't think we're quite there yet.
I'm not a white dude anymore.
Hey, you're a gray dude. Based on our current viewership, I don't think the world is quite ready for us yet.
I'm not going to touch on this a whole lot because it's a part of the new strain, etc. Everybody's ending up with it. It's not.
Yes.
Oh man, I could go so far with these things. For the interests of the show, though, Will, I don't know how anybody with a moniker of, that's the wrong word, who can zoom out a little bit and look at society in Canada, especially. Is this happening in Canada? It's happening around the globe now, but it's really, it began in Canada. Yeah. Look at the groundswell of normal people, of my sister, of your niece, of those who are looking at it and saying, wait a minute, I'm a liberal. I do hug a tree every now and then, but this has gone way too far. It just seems to me that at some point, you guys as Canadians, you gals as Canadians, have to realize that there is more than just a grain of truth here, and that your leadership has really let you down.
And I think that statement, as you just worded it, is pretty much spot on. This is where I don't fit in with my progressive friends and people that I talk to of a more progressive slant, is that I do sympathize with that heavily. I do sympathize with feeling that my government has let us down for various reasons, but in particular in this instance. And I do feel like it, I don't like the loss of rights and freedoms. As much as I talked about how I weighed it in favor one direction or the other. That doesn't mean that I have to like it or even necessarily be supportive of it. I wish it didn't have to happen. I wish it wasn't happening. And now that it's here, now we collectively as a country have to figure out what we're going to do about it, or what we're going to make our governments do about it, if we can
Right.
make our governments do anything, because they seem super intent on listening to us a lot.
And I absolutely agree with that last comment. It is not about the vaccines. It never. It sort of it was the impetus which sort of woke everybody up, but it really is about freedom of choice.
Yeah. And I want to offer a tiny little bit of pushback on that statement. I do agree with the what if conservatives get into power and use this against that. Yes, that's a concern. I'm concerned about what any government would do with that kind of power, conservative or liberal. But the right to die, we talked about this when we equated it to smoking, in the sense that yes, you have the right to do with your body as you will, but the unfortunate circumstance is that in regards to the flu and vaccination for it, it's not just your body that you're enacting your freedom on. You're potentially affecting the bodies of people around you that you interact with, and that's where I draw the distinction. I don't. Again, I'm not saying that I just think that the freedoms should just go out the window. The rights and freedoms aren't worth anything. It's not
What you're
not a decision that I sit on
saying is there's a
comfortably.
value to those rights and freedoms.
There's absolutely a value to our rights and freedoms. I think that's what separates us from, that's what makes us who we are as a country, is the ability to have that. There's there's a video or a movie called At
That's a
World's
hard
End.
one for me, Will.
Well, there's a lot of value to rights and freedoms. There's a video called At World's End. Hear me with you for
Okay.
this example,
Okay.
where the main characters, it starts off as a bar crawl and it turns out to be an alien invasion. It's a whole thing. But at the end of the show, these guys are drunk off their gourds, talking with some alien overmind. And the alien overmind's like, we've done all these wonderful things for you. We've integrated into your society, giving you technology and medicine and all these things at the cost of freedom. And they're like, yeah, well, we don't care. We want the right to be stupid, to get messed up and do dumb
Right.
things and get hurt. We want the freedom to do that. That's a wonderfully, I romanticize that. I romanticize the ability to do dumb things if I choose to. But somewhere there's got to be a line for that.
So
Anarchy
I
is
agreed
not
with
the
you
answer either.
on that one a little bit early on in this, when there was a shortage of the V available, and you sort of had to stay home, and you're saying, well, you need to social distance, do all that kind of stuff, is there's not an option for people.
Mm-hmm.
There is an option now. Is if you're worried about it, you can go do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
This is where our freedoms are taken away. We are saying, no, even though there is an option available for people, it doesn't matter. We're going to make you do it.
What option?
The vaccine.
Oh, yeah.
So there is this option, and everybody has it available now. There's no real shortage anymore. We're saying, you know what? Even though it's available to everybody, we're going to make sure you do it as we think it's the best thing for you. Now ignore that issue and look at anything else in life. And is it now going to be, no, we're going to take all the diesel pickups off the road and everybody is going to be
And see that,
an electric vehicle.
well, that,
As it's better for you because it's better for the environment. So therefore, it is better
yes,
for you,
but
Will.
not to the same degree, not to the same
No.
immediacy.
But how far along the road is that going to come?
I don't know. But this comes down to something that you and me debate about, both on the show and off the show regularly, is what ifs? What if they go a step further? When's it going to end? It's an endless argument. It's going to end somewhere, but we don't know where. That doesn't necessarily mean that this step is inherently bad just because it could go further.
Oh, that's a part of the conversation, though, Will, will
It
it
is.
end? Will it
It
end?
is. It will sometime. I just don't know where.
How do we know
It's
that?
the same line of thinking that people use to discredit the concept of non-heterosexual marriage. That where's it going to end? Are they going to be allowed to marry children and goats? Yeah, maybe. Unlikely. Really unlikely.
So
It's going to end somewhere. But stopping where we're at because we're worried where it could go is also a terrible way to look at things. But I want to quickly, before we lose it, I want to touch on that last comment by Bogues. I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what is, and it doesn't matter what is not. No compliance, no cooperation. The humans can push in all directions. I will not budge ever. First, I'm going to make the humorous comment of, what are you then? Not a human? Second, I'm going to make the comment of, that's the kind of mentality that no cooperation, no compliance, that is the kind of mentality that grinds this stuff to a halt and breeds the division that you and me, and I would argue most people don't want to have in our country. That lack of that complete immovability or inability to listen and compromise.
The reason
We
you
have to
get
share
it, though, is because
I get
of what
that.
has been put on people.
I get that. And I don't think that it's right that it was put on them. But somebody's got to break the cycle. Somebody has to be the bigger person.
I agree. I agree that as soon as there is a division, it hurts everybody. But to look at the people who are saying, enough is enough, no more, I'm not complying. I am done. I've had it up to here. And to look at them and say, ooh, you need to soften your stance. And to hear their prime minister look at them and say, you are the fringe who are misguided.
And that's wrong. He's like that. Those statements of the prime minister are the flip side of that coin. The flip side of that kind.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I read your mind, not your lips.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel the same about both comments. The comment of no cooperation, no compliance, and the comments about fringe groups, fringe minorities.
But how long has this attitude in leadership had to happen? And before our Bogues guy says, I've had it. This is not a Canadian mentality, William.
No,
this is a learned mentality, and it's learned over 2 years of government saying you have to do X, Y, Z.
I mean, it's learned on both sides. I mean, I'm not making this statement about people digging in their heels are the problem and attributing that exclusively to a conservative or an anti-government or an anti-liberal mindset. That applies to both sides. I can't count the number of progressive people I know that are aghast at any kind of compliance or cooperation with certain, like the fact that I even tertiarily mentioned support for this convoy as a protest has pissed so many people off because they have any affiliation with the Maverick Party, who probably has affiliation with alt-right and white supremacist groups, according to them, and all these different things, which may or may not be true. But the fact of the matter is that I would rather be in the middle, flexible, and a gap bridger of a person than be on one side or the other, digging in my heels, refusing to cooperate with the other side. I understand that both sides make mistakes, especially currently the Liberal government is making drastic mistakes.
And I would get that if you're in the U.S., I could say a little bit more, because I have less of a tolerance in the U.S. for the far right, as it's so entrenched.
Mm-hmm.
I have way more tolerance in Canada.
Relative to your far right, ours is pretty soft.
Right, as yours has been a learned far right, and the reason it's been learned is because of government overreach.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all the rise of the Maverick Party, all the rise of these alt-right in Canada is because of liberal overreach. And so when I see this Bogues guy, or her gal, I guess, doesn't need to be a guy, who says, I've had it, I'm done. You know, I'm the humans living on the planet, the ones who are not me, that these humans need to figure out which. I get that, as it's been learned. In the U.S., I have less sympathy. As here, it's sort of it's almost a right in the U.S. to be a little bit crazy and a little bit on the either all the way left or all the way right. In Canada,
perceived right.
Yeah. But you guys have learned it in 2 years.
I mean,
dramatic faction.
Yeah, it's accelerated. I can't say that it's like a brand new thing. I remember people being mad about Liberal Party overreach since the Liberal Party was put into power when I was younger. It's been a while now.
There always is the fringe, and I'm not going to argue that there's never a fringe, although
the divide is getting harsher. Like that
right,
line separating
although there's a
them is
reason
getting...
why the divide is harsher in Canada.
Oh,
right
absolutely.
now.
Absolutely. I agree that the Liberal Party is to blame for that divide as much as anything.
I think is a key part of that is when you have we know who Two Swans is.
Yes.
She's not a conservative.
No doxing, please.
They're not conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying enough is enough. So when that is happening, you guys as Canadians ought to be taking note and saying, wait a minute. If those who are on the progressive end of the scale are standing up and waving a Canadian flag and saying, I'm not going to take it anymore.
We're not going to take it.
It was funny. I was watching the live video of the convoy this morning in Ottawa. And they were playing that in the back. Well, it was on the PA, and all the comments are in the YouTube stream were, and copyright strike 3, 2, 1, go. But I think as Canadians, you really need to look around and say, how did we get here?
I think you're right.
It's not the U.S. that took you there. It isn't Orange Haired who took you there. It isn't Fox News who woke up one morning and said, hey, let's go up there and start a Rebel News or Maverick Party. It's this huge overreach on the part of the Liberal government who look at it and say, you know what, I think we can do a little bit more, and we can have a phrase like we're going to be the Great Reset. Like whoever his speechwriter is needs to get fired.
Oh, agreed. Wholeheartedly. I want to say I agree with that statement for what it is.
And I just want to say I got a thumbs up, so screw you.
Yeah. I agree with that statement for what it is. I do want to push back on one bit, though.
Yeah.
When you say that the Fox News is and whatnot didn't just make a Rebel News, I agree that they didn't do that. But what I do think happened is that we up here in Canada watched what's been happening down in the States. And I think that extreme people on both sides, but especially on the right, I think extreme people have realized that they're allowed to voice their extreme opinions. And there's enough of an audience that they will be supported for it. They've realized that it's okay to come out of the closet as being bonkers, hard right. So I think there has been an increase. As much as they may decry censorship because they get nuked off of some platforms, there's an audience and they're working harder to reach it now because they know it's there. And that audience is growing. I don't blame them necessarily specifically. I mean, they're doing it for their own reasons, their own grift. But I think that it has definitely shown people of an extreme mentality that there's money to be made. There's money to be made, and there's people's minds to be changed. There's power there.
To something
there's power that's right for the taking.
You all as Canadians, in the last 18 months or more, or 4 years, a little bit more. Let's go 5 years back. Let's go to the last election before. If the mess of the U.S. elections in 2 years, if it was not enough to wake you guys up and say, we don't want that horse crap, nothing will tell you that. And so the Rebel News and all these nonsense, they are the extreme voices, and they will never have the views of the people who go out and actually are meeting with people on the street. I don't think that they will. I think you look at Rebel News, nobody cares about Rebel News. It is a fringe. Ignore it. Ignore it.
They were quote unquote mainstream for a while.
Look at
they had
views.
Press people in Parliament. So, but yes, look at the
look
views.
at Joe Rogan, who has more of a viewer in one lousy show than all of CNN, NBC, ABC, NBC all put together.
Yeah.
It's not the networks, and we need to just ignore them and they will go away.
Well, no, I'm not saying just the networks. I'm saying that the networks have given a template or shown that it's a doable thing, that it is a process that works. And so smaller grassroots groups can do it and will do it.
Yeah, but that's not why you're in the boat you're in. You're in the boat you're in because of overreach and the erasing of the freedoms.
I think that is the primary factor, not the only one.
Okay.
But I do believe that is a primary factor.
I can assume that. Holy cow, Will, have we been arguing for an hour?
Pretty much. I want to just quickly touch on this last comment by Bogues. I know that at this point.
Do you really want to? I didn't think you did.
It's a horse that I've been beating to death.
Okay.
So I'm going to read this out loud for people who may be listening to the podcast post-show. But they said, since I am physically able to defend myself, that means the person claiming, quote unquote, authority over my physical existence on the planet, that individual will need to be physically strong enough to delete me.
Yes.
I don't know how best to work into this comment. You are right. You're an individual with authority over your physical form. You're correct. But this isn't colonial era. We function as a society, as a group. You have to be part of that group. You reap the benefits of being part of that group, like the internet that we're doing this on, like the roads that are built, like any number of public services that are a benefit to us as a group that function because we are a group. And that kind of extreme individualism is good. It's good for strength of character. It's good for personal freedom and expression. But taken to that level of extreme, that's a harmful way of thinking. I think. I just wanted to point that out, that extreme individualism doesn't do anyone any favors. And if you really want to be an extreme individual, go find a rock and live on your own.
I think that's being a little bit harsh. I
agree
with you.
It's hyperbolic. It's hyperbole.
What he said was hyperbole as well, though. I mean, he's saying.
I think so too. Yeah.
It's a nice way of saying you can take my gun out of my cold dead.
Man, I really wish we had that same kind of mentality around abortions.
We are going to go somewhere on this topic because yeah. I do have a different opinion on those. The rights of an individual should not supersede the rights of the whole or the community. That said,
there's a balance to be found.
There is a balance. And when your government overreaches, you have what's happening in Canada right now. And on that note, it's going to continue on getting worse until there is a reset, or you end up like the U.S. and you go from one extreme to the other, and you go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and nobody's happy with it. Nobody's happy with it. And so, Bogues, I don't want to delete you. I don't think anybody really wants to delete you. All they want you to do is do what they say. And that is really what I believe you're angry about, is you just want to live your life. And I think in Canada, you've, for the most part, have had the ability to live your life until about 18 months ago.
To a degree. I mean,
and I think
firearms owners would disagree with that statement, but
yeah,
yes.
There is. Okay, yeah.
that's a whole other ball of wax, which we've talked about. You can go find our previous episode with guest Wayne Gerber discussing that topic. Check it out. It's a good episode.
It is.
He's a smart guy.
And maybe we should have Alex on the show. I think having Alex on the show would be great. I think Alex.
Having a younger generation that is very internet savvy and a fresh mind, who isn't quite as jaded as we are and cynical. Although you might be as cynical as we are. Who knows?
He might. William, we should wrap this up. It's been an hour. It's been one of our most argumentative shows in a while. We haven't agreed on much.
It has. Who knew
Jeez,
the
and I
politics
still like you.
could be? Yeah, I tolerate you too. Love you, buddy.
So until next week, William, do you have anything to say to our viewers?
I do. Stay safe. Don't die. Have a good night, folks.